So start with your known, start with your 15 grams, and we're going to put that in what's essentially going to be a fence post. But before I do that, I'm going to look at what two I'm actually using. I'm for future references, I've got aluminum and silver. So we start with the fence post. So I've got 15 grams of aluminum over, I put 1 there because there's a blank. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to use the molar mass of aluminum. And to figure that out, I'll go to the periodic table. Aluminum on the periodic table is 26.98. So there you have it. Then I'll use that in the second half of the fence post, where I'll put grams on the bottom. So it'll be 26.98 grams under 1 mole. Now, when I have grams and moles, that mole is always 1. Keep that in mind for future references. And this is essentially, again, just a fence post. So you can see the fence post there. Grams are kitty corner from each other. So I can cross them off, right? And now I'm in moles of aluminum. I've made my first step. But there's more, right? Because there's 3 steps to each one of these. So I'll take the amount in moles here, and now for the second step, I'm going to use my mole ratio. My mole ratio is going to be the numbers from the equation. You see I have 1 with aluminum and 3 with silver chloride. Moles of aluminum will go on the bottom because I want those eventually to cross off. And moles of silver chloride will go on top because that's my unknown, that's what I'm going to. So I have 3 moles of silver chloride and 1 mole of aluminum. Again, that's just a fence post, right? So I've created a double fence post here for the first 2 steps. But there's 3 steps in each one of these problems, right? Because I've gone from mass to moles. And now I've used my mole ratio to convert to moles of my unknown. And then the final step is to go from moles of unknown to mass of unknown. So to do that, I'm going to need the molar mass of silver chloride. I'm going to need to take silver and add it to chlorine because it's AgCl. For that, I get 143 grams per mole. And I use that in my final step, where this time grams is on top rather than on the bottom like the first one. Because I'm not going from grams to moles, I'm going from moles to grams. I want to cross off moles. And also note this time that at the bottom, it's 1 mole of silver chloride. It's not 3 moles of silver chloride. The reason for this is simple. When I added up AgCl, I only added that up once. So that is 1 mole. It's 143 grams per 1 mole, not 3 moles, 1 mole. So I will only use the number in front, the coefficient, that 3. I'll only use it in the middle step, in the mole ratio. I won't use it on the outsides. So if you think back, a couple months ago when I was like, hey, the mole is always 1 in front. Well, it is, except for only the case of mole ratios. Okay? So I didn't lie to you earlier. We're still following that general rule. We're just not following that rule when it comes to mole ratios. We're using the numbers from the balanced equation. Now this looks intimidating, but all I did was 3 steps. Moles, mass, or mass to moles to moles, moles to mass. That's all I did, okay? And I used 1 substance for the first one, 1 substance for the second one. Now when it comes to the next step for fence post, that's the calculation step. That's where you multiply things on top. So I'll take 15, I'll times it by 3, I'll times it by 143, and I will divide 26.98 because it is on the bottom, right? To multiply on top, divide on bottom, nothing changes. When I do that, the math works out pretty simple. See if I can get it to go here. There we go. It's 239 grams of silver chloride. I rounded with sig figs as well. Okay. Now this might look intimidating right now, but know that your assignment is going to be somewhat simpler. Okay. I've taken each one of these steps and split it out so that you only have to do 1 step at a time, not all 3 steps at once for this first problem set. So let's do one more example, and then I'll show you how your homework will work. In this example, it's a little different because we're actually going to find a product. It says what mass of oxygen would be produced by from the decomposition of 37.2 grams of lithium chlorate. I know it's one of these mass-to-mass problems because it's asking for mass of oxygen, and it gives me a mass of a different substance, not of oxygen. So in this case, I'm using this reaction. Lithium chlorate will decompose into lithium chloride and oxygen. I balance the reaction with a 2, 2, and 3. And I know that my original amount is 37.2. What I don't know is the amount of oxygen that I'm going to use. I will circle the lithium chlorate and the oxygen because those are the numbers that I'm going to use in my fence posts. I will start always with what the problem gives me. Here it's 37.2 grams. The first step is to go from mass to moles. So grams is going to go on the bottom of the fraction. In this case, I'm looking up lithium chlorate on the periodic table. Lithium 6.94, chlorine is 35.45, oxygen is 16, but there's 3 of them, so I have to multiply the 16 by 3. When I add those together, I get 90.39. And so that 90.39 grams goes on the bottom of the first fence post. The 1 mole goes on top. Again, this is just a fence post, right? The second part will be the mole ratio. After my grams cancel out, I see that I have moles of lithium chlorate. So moles of lithium chlorate should go on the bottom. And you should see that I'm going to put 2 on the lithium chlorate this time because I'm doing mole ratio. And on the top, I'm going to put 3 moles of oxygen. If, for instance, this problem were a little bit different, and I did say what mass of lithium chloride, the other one that's not circled, then I would put 2 LiCl on top. But again, read the question, know where you're going. What mass of oxygen? So I'm going to oxygen, so I'm going to put 3 moles of oxygen on top. Then my moles of lithium chlorate are gone. I'm not dealing with lithium chloride anymore. I'm in oxygen. But I don't want moles of oxygen. I want grams of oxygen. And oxygen is 32 grams per mole. So my last fraction is going to have 32 grams on the top this time because I want the moles to cancel out eventually. So that diagonal rule is still there, no matter what. The calculation is pretty simple. You take 37.2 times by 3 times by 32, then divide by 90.39, then divide by 2. When you do that, the number that spits out in your calculator is 19.8 grams of oxygen. So a couple pointers. We're going to be calculating the mass for 2 different substances, right? We have the mass in the beginning that they give us, and then there's the mass at the end that we are going to find. But to do that, I have to find molar mass for both the known and the unknown. So I have to go to the periodic table twice. It's always 1 mole when you use the molar mass comparatively. Only use those numbers in the equation when you're doing mole ratio, the middle step. So with that being said, I am actually going to, let's see here. Oh, I need to do this on my iPad because I'm sharing the screen on there. Let me show you what your homework's like. Classroom. So I have here for you, I have a worksheet, and the worksheet is pretty simple. The worksheet has 6 problems that are exactly like the 2 examples I just showed you. I give you grams, you're going to find grams. And it's 1 page, 6 problems. That's it. We're going to have today and tomorrow. But you notice at the top it says with quizzes. You see what I've done on the quizzes is I've set it up so that it walks you through the first problem. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and walk through the first problem with you just because we have the time, so why not? So I'm gonna click on this quizzes link. And what I'll probably do is I'll probably have it split, right? Note that somebody did not put in their name for the quiz last week. You actually have to put your first and last name. because there are a couple Jose's that I have in class, Andreas, Deanna's, right? Your name might not be the only one that I have in all of my classes, so keep that in mind. And how the game works is when I click start here, it's not going to be timed, okay? But it is going to give me that very first problem in the picture on the top there. It says, here's my reaction. If 10 grams of silicon chloride are reacted, what's the amount in grams of HCl produced? I have the 3 fence posts there. And you see that little red box in the question? What it's asking is, hey, what is that step going to be? So here, for my first step, it's always going from grams of known to moles of known. So I'm going to be going from grams of SiCl4 to moles of SiCl4. So as I'm going through and I'm working on this worksheet, what I can do is I can say, okay, all right, so I'll write down the first part of the problem. I'll write the triple fence post. I'll put in the 10 grams of SiCl4, and then I'll think to myself, hey, which one of these am I going to put in that first box? Well, if you're doing this right, you want grams of SiCl4 to cancel out, so that immediately eliminates my middle 2 choices. It's got to be one on the outside, okay? The 169.89, that I get that from adding Si plus 4 Cls, and I'm going to be going to moles of SiCl4, not to grams of HCl, because I can't go there right away. So instead, I'm going to use this first question, and it'll tell me that it's right, okay? You get your little meme, yay, okay, awesome. Even if you pick the wrong one, it's still going to give you this question right here, and so I can see the right answer in the question. It's walking me through it, slow, step by step. Okay, and pay attention here, because eventually I'm going to be giving you guys ones that aren't going to be just, you know, hand feeding you answers as you're going through. This middle one is always the mole ratio, right? And from the equation, I can tell that it's 1 SiCl4 and it's 4 HCl. So the question is, am I going to use the first or third option? Is the 4 going to be on the top or on the bottom? Well, if you look at the last answer that we had, it was 1 mole of SiCl4. So that should go on the bottom as I'm going through. Because remember, those need to cancel out. Again, don't worry if you pick the wrong answer, because if you do, it's going to show it on the next question. Okay? On this one, I'm going to go from moles to grams, but I'm going to pick the wrong one. I'm going to flip it just to show you that it will tell you that you're wrong, and it will show you what the right answer is as you're going through. Okay? And then you even get the right answer there so that you can write it down. Okay? This is the step where you actually need to do the calculation. To do it correctly, you should take 10 times 4 times 36 and divide by 169. I have no idea what that answer is, to be honest with you. Let's see here, 10, 40 times another, let's say 40 is 160, so it should be around 1 or 10. Question is it going to be bigger than 10 or less than 10? I bet it's going to be less than 10. Hey, I got it right. Okay. And then we'll move on to the next question. But the idea being that as I'm going through and doing those questions, I am actually writing them on my worksheet. Okay, and then I'm going to hand this in on Classroom. I'm not going to look at the quizzes results on this one. I'm only going to look at your questions on Classroom. That's the thing that I'm actually going to grade. So I'm going to stop the recording here, and anybody out there can ask questions as needed and whatnot. Anybody else can send me a question via email whenever you need to.